Our next inductee, our fourth inductee from the GHS class of 1976 is Coach Steve Cheesman.
Thank you to the committee, wonderful people here, a great media that we have. I want to also congratulate all the recipients, wonderful athletes. I know the guys that I coach golf with this year probably thought that I coached Pete Boynton too, so how old they think I am. And want to also thank Mr. Houston, Mr. Flater. We have two really, really wonderful administrators there. You guys talk about being nervous. Well, I do this a lot, and I'm usually not nervous. I'm nervous tonight. And I'm really nervous, I think, for a couple reasons. I cannot convey to you, don't think I have the time nor the words to how humbled I am for this honor and how meaningful it is. I'm very, very grateful for it. I really, really, really am. And no question that I'm a Silver Streak through and through. Started when my brother and I and other neighbor guys in Northland over there, and if we could have put together a school team from that neighborhood, we would have been a pretty good school team and high school team. We would come over here on our bikes. There was no Van Dyke Field then, no Sunberg Field then, and watch football practice, watch baseball games, things like that, and really, really, really got interested in things from there. And went on from youth sports to junior high sports, on to high school sports, and then was able to get my teaching degree and became a coach after that. And I would like to say I'm a teacher coach. I believe that my first job was a teacher, and those kids that I had in class meant a great deal to me as well as these athletes. So it really was a dream come true for me, something that I felt privileged and honored to get to do, and I tried to view that every day of my life as a coach and still do that today, 40 years later of doing this. And I got to do this, and one of the years that we don't put down is Coach Bob and Coach Bill, back then, and this was about 1973, could not coach. There were a rule about how much they could coach. And they started 7th grade football, and we had to have it in the springtime. And they came and asked me to do it between playing basketball and baseball along with the faculty guys. So I got my start being a coach when I was in 9th grade. So, and went on from there. You know, getting to do this, like I said, for 40 years, a bunch of different teams. I've tried to view it, like I say, as a privilege and an honor every day, a labor of love. Lots and lots of people to thank, lots of people to mention. There's no way that I could ever, and that's the thing that bothers me, mention all the people that have had an influence on me. I do want to say a couple things about the teams. Again, I think I did about 90-some seasons of sports. Boys and girls basketball at church at one time at the same time. That wasn't very smart, but nevertheless did it. My wife still took me in after that. The three things, the biggest, are the golf. And I've got a number of those players that I just had this year. And I have Dusty Watson, who was one of our coaches, and also Jason Spring. The thing about boys golf here, and it's the most successful sport in Galesburg boys sports history, girls golf is the one on the other end, is these kids really cared, they worked at it, and they wanted to be good. And they were an extreme joy to be around. Also, been with basketball for a long, long time and did about everything imaginable. Saw the good, the bad, and the ugly, folks, that's for sure. And Coach Houston did a great job. And then Coach Reynolds came after him. And to be with him the last 7 years and see the resurgence of this basketball program and see it really be put on the map again, that's a guy that I think the world of and I would do anything for, and absolutely been a pleasure to be around him, and he's extremely meaningful in my life. I also want to say, we've talked about Bob and Bill Morgan, those two guys, and all of us that have ever played for them, absolutely worship the ground that they walk on. They're two wonderful people too. And finally, and there's not a whole lot said about this, but all the things that I've ever coached, I will tell you this honestly, Galesburg Legion baseball is my favorite. We spend 6 to 8 weeks every summer living together every day. For a long period of time, we become a family. And that really, really reaches into your soul. And to have Jamie Isaacson and his dad that did so much for me, Les Hunter's here, it was a lot of fun. And those kids are really meaningful in my life. And to think of all the teams, I think if I had to pick one, and I've said this to those kids way back, the most important team that I ever was around was the 2014 Galesburg Legion team, that if you wanted to make a Disney movie, you could have made one out of them. The comebacks that they made, the achievements that they actually came through with, and then that was also the year that we lost Jason Malden in an automobile accident, and watch how those boys conducted themselves and how this community went about their business here of grieving and honoring that young man and his family will stay with me for the rest of my life. I took a lot from the coaches that had great influence on me that I both played for and that I coached with. And again, you take the good and the bad. You know, I look at this thing here. I did play varsity basketball at Galesburg High School, but I didn't get a letter for it. Back then, sometimes they didn't give letters out. And I know one thing, that as I've coached all these years, I made sure everybody on that ball club, wherever team that was important, 1 through 15, 1 through 20, whatever. And I think that that's one thing that I learned from that. I learned to care about them also as people. And I hope that they sensed, whether it was students that I had or players that I had, their most important thing to me was them as a person. And it didn't matter where they were on the team or what they did, they were really, really important to me. The players that I grew up playing with, there's a bond there, and I think Pete said that's unspoken, that never goes away. You know, Jeff Flater right here, his older brother and I went to school from kindergarten on. We played sports together. He just celebrated, we're all celebrating our 60th birthday, so that's not good. But that bond is never going to be broke. It's something that's always going to be important. And those guys, we pushed each other to try to be the very best we could be. And again, like I said, the players that I coached, they're the reason for athletics. And when you figure out that it's all about them and it's not about you, then things happen that are good. And there again is an unspoken bond and a relationship that can never be broken. Again, thank you to all those coaches, and you know, a couple of others that I didn't get to mention. Coach Kane, what an unbelievable guy, and what he did, and the leadership that he really executed and displayed, and certainly things that I can learn from. And the final thing that I want to say is the most important people of all of this are my family. My Uncle Ed here is a lot younger than my dad. But my dad, when he was working, we would go over there, and after school when he came home, and he was a good Silver Streak athlete. He played with us, and he's the reason for my love of the White Sox. So that's all good. My mom is no longer with us. She had the soft spot for us and took care of us when our dad was hard on us. My brother Barry, who we were inseparable growing up, and when you have somebody like that you're constantly playing with, baseball, football, and basketball, who I think is the greatest athlete ever to go through here. And when you've played professionally 2 sports, I think that's pretty good proof. And then my dad is going to be 89 years old. He's my hero, and he's the guy that made all this happen. I mean, he's the one that played with us, brought us here, brought us to games, taught us about things, created the kinds of expectations and how to behave and how to go about your business. He's the reason for it all, and I love him greatly, and I'm glad that he's here, going to be 89. And finally, my sons, Breck and Carson, who, I mean, they're wonderful sons. God's blessed me with a lot of things. He's given me 2 great sons, one that likes sports, one that didn't, but one that was always supportive, and I got to coach the other one, and he could be on my team anytime. He's just the kind of teammate that you'd want. Finally, my wife, again, 40 years of coaching. She's been here through it all, thick and thin, and she still has me. So that's good news, and I appreciate all of her support, and the love she's given me, and it's been great. Thank you. Thank you to all of you. Thank you very much.